Hello, welcome back to Out on That Line podcast, and we do have another review for you this week. I am Jeff with my co-host, as always, Alex. Alex, how we doing this week?
Jeff, hell of a landing there. Way to land the plane safely. Well done. Well done. Kudos to you, sir. I am doing great. I hope you're great too. I hope everyone at home is great. And I especially hope that tonight's third Mike is doing great. Y'all know him. He's my sweet cheese, my rotten soldier, my good time boy. It's Tanner. Tanner, welcome back.
I got a bad case of the brain scramblies, and I'm very happy to be here. Super excited to dive into this epic record that we're going to be talking about, and yeah, again, just happy to be on the show with you, gentlemen.
Well, as always, we're happy to have you back, Tanner. Do you want to tell the people what we're doing? Because I think you might be the only one that's seen this guy live.
I may have, yes. We are doing it's the new album from the Polka King, Polka Polka Polka, and we are doing the new Noah Kahan, The Great Divide, and not the extended version that one of us maybe accidentally listened to, but we're just doing the straight up album version. If you're looking for the Easter eggs, folks, maybe we'll do an addendum. I don't know, but yeah, an album that has certainly, as you know, three Vermonters here. This is a guy that blew up on the scene years ago, put Vermont on the map musically after many years of Grace Potter obviously, Fish obviously, but this is like he struck the mainstream. He hit it big, obviously with Stick Season, and just a lot of build up to this album. He's got a lot to kind of live up to, and yeah, I'm really excited to go through. Again, it's a long album. Really excited to go through and talk about it with you guys.
This was essentially like the way social media reacted to this album. This was the Super Bowl for millennial white women, for sure.
They finally get something. Good for them.
A win.
They needed that.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, like, to that end, Tanner and I were talking about a little bit the other day. In a weird way, it feels like this album, like as big as Noah Kahan is, it feels like this album has like kind of sort of flown under the radar a little bit, which is a weird thing to say about a guy with 27 million monthly streams or followers or whatever on Spotify. But it does kind of feel like people maybe aren't talking about this as much as you would think they would, and quite frankly should. You know what I'm saying?
And I think it's just like the fractured landscape of just media in general. I think you get really, depending on which service you're using, you tend to get kind of sequestered into certain areas based on your interests. Like certainly something like Reddit, for example, is like your homepage can be just things that you've chosen to follow, right? And and so there's other things that'll get sprinkled in, but there's probably a lot of things that you'll just straight up miss. So I think people that were already Noah Kahan fans were hype for this album, but I think he already, I think, had hit kind of a level of, he's selling out like arenas and stadiums and stuff like that. Like he's not, it's not like there's really a lot higher for him to go as far as like the popularity. So where, if you don't see that step like he took after everybody heard Stick Season and All My Love, which I hear every single day at work. It's one of the only ones that I can stand because it's a good song. When you like the people that were going to be there for it are already there for it. And I think there's not a lot of, I don't know how much like discovery of Noah Kahan there's going to be further, because I think you've already like, it's pretty well saturated at this point. So you just don't get that same huge splash like that. The surface tension's already broken.
And I feel like I should, to that end, also say that I feel like people like us, when we lock in on a song, we eventually lock in on this artist in some way. So like Noah Kahan to us is someone that, to various degrees, like Tanner's seen him live. You and I weren't that into, I'm not that into Stick Season. The song is a victim of its own success. It's not his fault, but just wasn't into that. It didn't put me in the right headspace to get into the Stick Season album. So it's we're coming from different levels for Noah Khan, but each of us is like taking the time to dive in. I feel like there are a lot of people. I mean, I know there are a lot of people out there. It's the ubiquity on TikTok. It's the same Dr. Dog. Where'd all the time go? Dr. Dog. That song was everywhere. They're not like a national treasure off of that. I don't think people like necessarily went, ooh, nice, great song, dig into that artist. It's just, this is kind of the meme song, the punchline song du jour, and it changes over every now and then. And right now, this is the hotness, and Stick Season is a victim of being the new hotness. So I do wonder if it's like you were saying, where it's like you have Noah Khan fans, then you can't even necessarily call them Noah Khan casuals because they're like cultural casuals instead. It makes it a very like interesting album to talk about, and then add on top of that the lens that, as Tanner said, it's 3 Vermonters talking about this. So I think there's like something on a visceral level there too that we're all going to relate to. I say we jump in.
Yeah, let's do it. And I think, and I love the fact that, because I don't know how much like Fish ever talks, because I don't listen to Fish. Tanner, you can tell us about this, but like, does Fish talk about Vermont? Like, is that like a thing or a theme in their music?
Not so much lyrically, like little things like the song Farmhouse is about Trey's barn, which is where they record a lot of stuff, things like that. I will say that right, Picture of Nectar is about Nectar Roris, the owner and proprietor of Nectar's in Burlington, RIP. To the restaurant, I'm pretty sure Nectar is still alive. I'll have to fact check that. But interestingly enough, I've watched all 6 Sphere shows so far, and there's been a lot of Vermont imagery they've been using inside the Sphere, but not in terms of like lyrically or anything like that. But it is interesting, like the timing of this, that Vermont's kind of getting back on the map musically, and they're leaning into the imagery of Vermont. But yeah, not in terms of lyrically or musically.
I get this sense in this album. There was definitely a lot of points. I mean, it wasn't obviously as on the nose as like Stick Season was about talking about Vermont and things like that, but I feel like I get the sense that Noah Khan has a pride in being a Vermonter the same way that I do. Where it's like, people ask where I'm from, like, how do you know where Jeff is from? Don't worry, he'll tell you. Like that's really that's a joke at my work, and like, because I talk about it with all my customers. It's like it's something that I'm really proud of, that I can talk extensively about. And I think when you grow up in a place like that, and I think that also lends to your understanding of his music, where I really feel like when I hear these songs that I'm really hearing them, that because I know people just like the people he's talking about. When he describes going down this road or dirt road, or describing weather, I'm like, yeah, I know what that Vermont weather's like. You can feel it because it's I spent 28 years of my life there. So there's a connection that I think you feel, and it's not like he's just tossed off like we just know he's from Vermont. It's like that's an actual part of the identity with the music and himself. And I think that just, around and around we go, just kind of gives you plenty to love about it.
Just for example, in Paid Time Off, a quick offhanded line, the fast food sign out in Leb. He's talking about West Leb.
Yeah.
We all drive by those. If you're going to Boston from Vermont, you drive by those fast food signs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lived in knowledge. It's like institutional knowledge that he has about the state, and not like I can tell you what Vermont's state bird is, and like Vermont's state flower is this. It's like, no, I lived it. I feel it, and it's also very interesting, like how it kind of changed, like what the outside viewers kind of think of like what Vermont is as well. I work in sports, and a lot of the stuff that I cover is University of Vermont athletics. All of those teams have Stick Season somewhere. Vermont Green in the summer, the semi-pro soccer team, Stick Season. And you can tell it means a little bit different to each team based on where they play it. Is it in warm-ups? Is it at halftime when they're not out there? Is it their win song? Is it their win song and they're all scream singing it? Vermont field hockey. Like, so there's even like different layers to that of like, okay, there are not many native Vermonters on these teams, but they've come to Vermont to play here, and Stick Season means something to them, obviously, as well. Not to just keep going back to Stick Season, but like he just has this lived in like knowledge and expertise of the state that not a lot of artists out there write and sing about their home state like that. There's a lot of love lettery stuff to Vermont and to the region. Not a lot of, alternative pop rock stars are kind of doing the same thing in this day and age.
Yeah. And and I think because he gets like the big criticism that I think people have of Noah Kahan is he gets grouped in with that like kind of stomp clap era of music where it's like guy with a guitar, like a guy like Philip Phillips is very much like some of John Mayer's, like before he did like the Dead and Company and like the John Mayer trio stuff. Like I think he gets lumped in as that almost like just really soft, easy listening kind of music. But there is so many, like he really is very honest about his emotional issues, like his emotional triumphs and his emotional like detriments too. I think that's what really brings people into Noah Kahan, and that's what makes them stay there. I think is his honesty about like the things that he struggles with, whether it's family, whether it's a girl. Seems like it's a girl in every other song. It's like, dude, how many of these were there, buddy? You've running around town that much, you're bound to have some problems, I suppose, but I don't know if it's all about the same girl or same couple girls, or even if it's an actual real person, or if he's just using that to kind of like personify these feelings he's trying to get across. I think songs, and then he's a song like Dan as well on this album, don't mean to skip right to the end, but I think it illustrates the point really well of why you get so connected to this is because we've done all that stuff that he talks about in that song. Like there's certain things about Vermont that I think people can't understand unless they've been there, unless they've lived there. You can go visit, go to Stowe or go to Killington or go to Manchester and like these quaint little picturesque like Vermont towns, but go drive through Eden for me one time, buddy. That's what Vermont is. Go drive up Kamire Hill Road. That's what Vermont is. And I think the recognition of the difference in lifestyles, right? Because us growing up in Barrie, does not have a great reputation throughout the state. But what I'd love to talk about is that the granite industry, and when I tell people like, oh yeah, Barrie's not that great, it's like I'm usually talking to someone from like Houston, where a place like the Third Ward makes Barrie look like the most perfect place on earth. You know what I mean? So it's like there's different levels to it. And I think unless you're from there, you can't understand like how those things affect your day-to-day life. And I think the way that he describes the emotions he feels along with describing the places he's feeling them in is why this stuff lands so well.
There's kind of a baked in Vermont attitude, like not to like drive that point into the ground, but I mean, there is just a kind of a real sense of Vermont identity that whether or not he's directly naming, New England, Vermont, whatever, it's in there. You can just tell. It's in the way that he writes. It's in the way that he writes his music. It's in the way that his lyrics come out. There's a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of authenticity. There's like some very unsubtle parts talking about, your heart is an open flame, whatever. But I think those are earned because you could have a moment like that where you try to put a hat on a hat and end up with a worse metaphor. So go ahead and kind of take the easy one if it's fully expressing what it is you're trying to say. Like it's a lot of unpretentious songwriting that I think reminds me a lot of kind of the way you deal with folks in Vermont and New England in general, but in Vermont where it's just plain spoken, gonna tell you how I feel. I think when he calls himself an asshole, you could see someone saying that to his face. That's the thing. Vermonters are kind. We're not nice. We'll help you fix your car and stuff, but we're not gonna mince words. So there's kind of this like very obvious Vermont attitude that permeates the whole thing, which I love as a Vermonter. And then stepping outside of that and looking at this thing as a whole, it's a really, really interesting look at the great divide between pre-fame and what you're looking at now after all of the success. Unimaginable heights for a Vermont boy. Imagine one of the three of us has this experience, right? I mean, not too much of a difference. This podcast explodes. We overtake Rogan. We stomp his little pea brain. We finish the job that Alpha Brain started, and we just stomp his goofy ass. I mean, that's a wild experience, and listening to him kind of live through that on this album it's interesting because there was a lot of humility. It's a humble album in a lot of ways. It's not like one of these albums. It's like the burden of greatness. There's like a ton of guilt about being successful and becoming famous. It's a really, really interesting lens. It's a horribly New England, Vermont lens, this like North kind of self-effacing, brooding way of looking at your success. It's not a curse, but you sure do feel guilty about it.
And I think in the song Doors, it kind of leads to exactly what you're talking about, is that kind of like that guilt and that like an extreme amount of self-awareness, but also the stubbornness of like, just, I am who I am. Like, you know, I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to make myself better, but it's like, at the end of the day, I am who I am. So the line, like, I just live here, babe, but you're the one who decided to knock. You know, there's like the literal sense of what he's saying there, but he's also saying like, I'm me. You're the one that wanted to get to know me. It's like, I've got problems too. You know, I'm gonna do some shitty things that makes you feel bad. I'm gonna feel bad about that. But he's like, it's just who I am. It's what I do. And you know, it's I think appropriate that he's done a song with Casey Musgraves, because I think he does some of that kind of like clever turning of phrase the same way that she does. Like when he, you know, in the same song when he says, "You were unsuspected, not unwarned." You know, it's like you can just listen to that and fly right by it, but there's always these little moments that you can dig a little deeper into and realize kind of like how clever that was to write something like that. You know, that you know, not unwarned, that I'm the trouble ahead, that I scream in my sleep, you're putting money on red, I'm a sure bet at a losing streak. I keep showing you doors, but you can't open them up because it gets harder to see me the closer you try to look. You know, and I think it's a understanding that he doesn't maybe fully understand him. There's a lot of honesty, but I think part of that honesty is not knowing how he's going to react in any given situation until he does the reaction, and then he feels guilty about it. You know, and I think it's the way that he writes those lyrics is what separates him from that, like the stomp clap kind of era of music, like I was talking about. You know, it separates him from the Mumford and Sons style of music. Although I will say Wilder Mind by Mumford and Sons, like this gave me a lot of vibes of that album, where it's just, you start out with these kind of softer moments, you know, that really just the acoustic guitar, and then they just build and build and build. And that's one thing that I really love about this too, is it doesn't just start in one place and stay there. And in an album that's, you know, the version I listened to, an hour and a half long, if you don't move it in some way, it's going to get boring. Like no matter how good your lyrics are, no matter, like an hour and a half worth of any sort of content, if it doesn't have some variation and some things that you can dig into that are different from the last thing you dug into, it's going to feel very repetitive. And I think there's an argument that maybe the album could have been cut down a little bit, you know, even the regular version, you know, the regular release, the non-deluxe edition. But I think when you take it in as a whole, maybe it feels a little long, but I don't know that there's a single song that I think doesn't fit with the album, or that there wouldn't feel like there's something missing if you did take it out.
I think the comparison with Mumford and Sons is really poignant because Noah has said that Marcus Mumford's like a huge influence on him, and B, so technically I've seen Noah play twice. The first time was a show, was a benefit that he put on, but the second time was the Mumford and Son, the Railroad Revival tour. And he was the special guest in Vermont. So he came out and played 5 of his songs, and one of them he did just him and Marcus Mumford acoustic, which was like once in a lifetime stuff. Stick Season, he played it with Mumford and Sons, like it very, very special and poignant day. But like, so it's got the fingerprints, the influence is there, but he's not just like aping the Mumford and Sons sound. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're clearly part of his sound, but in like the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I also found myself in listening to the lyrics specifically of a lot of these songs. There's a lot of the kind of Springsteen, Nebraska to this, and Springsteen in general, where it's like he's shit talking this somewhat fictionalized version of himself, but only he knows what percentage the fictional, you know what I mean? Like we're listening, we're like, oh man, like there's no way that he really, thinks has this low of an opinion of himself, right? But also there's some truth in there somewhere. And I just think it's just very honest. It's just there's a lot of very honest lyrics, very honest stuff going on this album. And I think that like he's got this quote. I had this quote pulled up. Sixth season is like doing shrooms and thinking you understand the entire world. And the Great Divide is like 3 months later. That was great and that was helpful, but there's a lot more we got to figure out still. He'll do some shrooms with you, but he's not going to pretend like it's going to change his life. He's not going to become a kayak guide somewhere. He has to go to work in the morning.
Whoa, shots fired. I have also done mushrooms and I was a kayak guide for a while. Like,
yeah, but not after you wrote Stick Season.
That's true. I did not. He was more successful in that part of it. That's for sure.
There's one other specific lyric, specifically indoors, in the second verse. So forgive me if I jump at the rattle of your keys. Oh, are you leaving? No, babe, I'm just waking up. And now what? I'm left staring at the ceiling, listing reasons you should pack all your shit up. Like that is just like a total anxiety spiral put to paper so succinctly that if you blink, you miss it.
Yeah. And I think part of his appeal too is that honest self-reflection. Like he definitely does some shit talking about other people on this album, but it's balanced equally with the shit he talks about himself. And I think, a song like The Great Divide, like the title track from the album, like the chorus for that, I hope you settle down, I hope you marry rich, I hope you're scared of only ordinary shit, because like he doesn't have the ability to get rid of that anxiety in that existential dread that he gets from, is my next creation not going to land as well as the other ones? He's got a whole other set of problems. Like he's got your typical growing up in Vermont in a place where industry doesn't really exist, and that's good and bad, but there's not a lot of easy ways to have a full-on career and be like super successful. And I think him knowing this was like his ticket out, is this music career, but he's so like he has so much anxiety about the way he acts with people, the way he acts with himself, that you just get this sense he feels like the bottom could fall out any minute.
There's also this on. Sorry, do you want to?
No. It's go ahead.
Okay. Good old fashioned polite off on the pod tonight. You talking about this fear that the bottom's gonna fall out. The other big theme that I locked into, sometimes with songs going back to back to back, there's this idea that like the people in his life are not necessarily all thrilled that this happened to him. The song Porch Light, I think for me, is kind of the straw that stirs the drink in that equation, in the sense that it's ostensibly from like the point of view of his mom being like, we hate that you air all the dirty laundry in these songs. And that through line is in a bunch of these songs. So you get like my little lyrics up here. You walked into a haunted house and got angry at the ghosts. We were fine without you, baby, long after you've gone. Spare us all the pity, love, save it for the microphone. Then when you go to Dashboard, look at you leaving again. It's all you know how to do. They all say you're a light. All I see is the shadow. And I'll see you again in 6 months when you need your next song. Followed by Willing and Able. Look at you go, crossing state lines with your shadow. Turns out that you're still an asshole. So this asshole theme kind of runs through it. And it's kind of a shocking thing to think about, is like the people that, whether they resent your success or they don't understand it, or it did change you in some way, or maybe it's not even a permanent change. It's just watching you try to figure it out. You haven't fully metamorphosed into an asshole, but you're in like a little pupillary stage of fame. Like, this is his 4th album, I think, but Stick Season was the thing that put you on the map and just kablooey. Like, that is, you're dealing with that ongoing. This album is a part of this was a sink or swim thing, which I think ties back to the bottom falling out. Because if this was plop, if this sucked, that is it for the myth of Noah Khan. If he had nothing left to say, if he did not have this original personality and this original POV, it's a popcorn fart, and that's the end of Noah Khan. And I think instead, for me, it represents not necessarily like a quantum leap forward, but a bold step in the right direction without changing a lot of shit. The big thing for me, like, I love the thematic exploration of, you know, has fame changed me? The ongoing relationship with the craft and you know, exploding in the public eye. The other big thing for me that sets this apart from Sixth Season and makes me say, like, this is an exciting direction is the production.
Yes.
There's a lot of polish on this. There's a lot of intent. There's like a sense of purpose to it all. I love Jack Antonoff now. I didn't used to. I love him now. The unnecessary hat on a hat stuff does not occur here. This is really like very, 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 very polished, supporting and elevating the lyrical and musical content.
Yeah, and I mean it's Aaron Dessner, you know, it's Aaron Dessner getting together with Noah, and Gabe Simon, who co-produced Sixth Season, is back. It's got the Dessner. He's created kind of like Wall of Sound 2.0, like indie Wall of Sound. You hear it on the first song right out of the gates. It kind of just like shows you, hey, you know, this is a Noah Khan album, but like Aaron Dessner produced this. And I was almost like a little leery of it at the beginning. I was like, oh no, if it's, you know, 17 songs of this, I don't know. And but no, credit to Dessner and the production crew. The songs that need the bombast, they get them. The songs that need to be stripped down are stripped down. And you've got our guy Bon Iver doing background vocals all over the place.
Yeah.
There are times when Noah Khan hits his falsetto, and I almost sit there, I'm like, wow, that sounds like just like Justin. And then the backups come in, and then he is there as like it's a great little piece for people that are like production and liner note nerds like we are.
Yeah.
To be able to kind of hear that and point it out at the same time. And they recorded some of this at Dessner's recording studio in upstate New York, which I found the website for it earlier, and it's like absolutely crazy looking. Really, really cool. Also, he, you know, wrote obviously a ton of it in Vermont and spent some time in Nashville too. But yeah, no, the production on this shines. It takes it at Sixth Season was very much like a indie acoustic rock album. This is like, it's like singer-songwriter, but it's with the weight of a masterful producer behind it. And I didn't know that it was Dessner doing it until after I listened to the lead single, Great Divide, when it came out. I kind of did some little digging and stuff, and I'm very interested in how these songs will be performed live. Because when I saw him, he had like a relatively decent sized band up there. So yeah, I'm very interested in how that's going to play out. But yeah, I would
imagine he's going to have the ticket sales to support.
Whatever
musicians he wants to pay to be up there with him. Yeah.
Maybe you should learn the fucking theremin. But in talking about the production element of it, I did want to loop to Headed North, because on a second and third listen, it really stood out to me, and I was reading about it earlier. I think they just recorded this outside on a porch somewhere. Like, you can hear nature in the back. And he flubs it at the beginning too.
Yeah.
And like they don't edit around it, they don't cut it out, and then he like references it at the end. Like, I think this was them out. I don't know if it was like a 4-track or what, or if they just put a mic near him and he just played his acoustic and sang it.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear his like foot tapping on the floor as he's playing it. And
Again, that Nebraska parallel that you drew earlier.
right, it's right there. It's staring us in the face at times. And he played this show at Spruce Peak Performing Arts last summer. That it's a really small venue. I saw the Wallflowers there. Shout out. And he debuted this song there. And that must have been a very special moment for him because, like, that's going to be the closest he's going to get to recreating the recording of that song. Like, small crowd, very intimate. It was just him. It was a solo acoustic Noah show. He did a golf tournament that same weekend, which was pretty cool. Impossible to get into. I tried. But yeah, like that we can strip things way down to doing like a one take on a song with no overdubs or anything. And then bell curve it all the way up to Aaron Dessner with all his tricks and all his bells and whistles at his fingertips and how big he can make Noah sound. And then, you just go back and forth between that. It's yeah, I was floored when I heard Headed North the first time. And also it takes place pretty deep in the album. So you're like, if it came in like 3, 4, 5, 6, it's like, okay, but like you got a lot of polish all the way through, and then you kind of, oh, I like bumped on it. Like he says, like, oh shit, like he flubs the beginning. And it like kind of takes you out of it a little bit. And I also wonder if that's intentional, that they want to kind of take you out of it. And then you kind of settle back in.
I think it leads you to feeling more like this album has been lived in, is giving you kind of a real moment like that, because it is, I think, and like polish is a good and bad thing, right? Sometimes you can have things that are just way over compressed, or just the amount of polish doesn't really fit the kind of music that it is. Like, can you imagine, like, so I've always preferred the older Coheed and Cambria versus a lot of the newer stuff, because as their budget for studio time increased, some of the like rawness and realness and some of that kind of like DIY kind of punkish feel that those earlier records had are not there anymore. It's not like they've gotten worse as musicians or the music's any worse itself. It's just how it hits my ear. Sometimes the production value can kind of be a negative attribute if it's too polished in a lot of cases. I think with this style of music, I think the way that it builds and builds, there's so much clarity in all those instruments that they're using that it allows you to take that ride up in those really like kind of big crescendo moments in these songs. I think his voice also, it rings like a bell. It just sits on top of those things and it cuts through. One of the reasons I really can't stand the National is because the guy just sings like this a lot of the time, and it's like they do have some big crescendo moments, but I just can't get over that kind of vocal style. Part of what I love about Mumford and Sons is when Marcus Mumford just gets to yelping. And I think it's because you feel it. It's like it hits this kind of like visceral part of you and you feel it. And I think they did a great job balancing the polish, which allows you to appreciate all that instrumentation without doing that too much to his voice necessarily. They add a lot to his voice with the backing vocals that they do with it. And I think it takes all the parts of Bon Iver that I like, and the National that I like, and Mumford and Sons that I like, that I've got kind of problems, especially with like Bon Iver and the National. I've got kind of problems really listening to any of those in depth, other than Sable Fable by Bon Iver. That album was great. I think he takes the best parts of all those things, and that's why it's so successful for me, this as an album.
I think those hallmarks are definitely there. Obviously, if you're going to have Dessner and Justin Vernon work on this kind of thing, those fingerprints are going to be all over it. But for me, what I think pushes it forward is, I don't want to put him on the same level as John Prine as a lyricist, but there's that same kind of sense of songwriting, of construction, of putting it all together. It's not like we're talking about like, this 13-year-old kid sure is wise beyond his years, but there's like a maturity and a self-possessed quality to the songwriting that like someone like Zach Bryan, who I believe is older than Noah Kahan, seems, and he just seems more immature in the way that things are. Like, it's good music, but the POV kind of feels a little like, I'm just a young kid.
Yeah.
And Noah Khan, it's like, dude, no way, you got a full-on mustache. Noah Khan is not doing that, but it therefore feels like wise beyond its years without sounding old or out of touch. It's very like lived in. It's very now. It's got a sense of something that's taking place in the present. It's not going to feel dated when you go back to it. I think there's like a real lived in quality to it. Like, as you listen, it just instantly transports you into this like specific time in his life, this specific tableau, where his songwriting from a musical perspective and a lyrical perspective continues to get better and get more interesting. Like, the sense of place and time and character is very Paul Simon. Again, like the recording techniques and the kind of candid nature of the lyrics is very Bruce Springsteen. Put that on top of Bon Iver and The National and Mumford and Sons, so that it doesn't become stomp, clap, hey, but it's also not afraid to like borrow from that tradition, because like Mumford and Sons was hot and deserved to be hot. I've never been on board with the Lumineers. That for me is stomp, clap, hey, like the alpha and the omega, just like not for me.
Yeah.
But I think Noah Khan is building off of, again, like Tanner said, not aping these influences, building off of them. I think chasing after kind of some of the same authenticity that these other like singer-songwriters have gone after. So it's really, really interesting to deliver like a rock album. You can call it a rock album. You could call it a folk rock album. You could call it an indie rock album. You could call it singer-songwriter. It checks a lot of boxes. It does a lot of exciting things, even though within it, I do find a decent amount of sameness. There are a lot of ballads that kind of take on the same shape as each other. And there are a lot of
the song structures, especially
structurally, they never deviate. And that's, when you do it well, that's fine. But for me, there were two things. It was, I'm not afraid of a long album, but the sameness made you feel the length.
Yeah. And
so
I think
things.
there was repetition in its construction, not really in its subject matter, and I think the fact that he did, have all these kind of build up moments that helped put a little bit of a band-aid over that, and you didn't stress about it quite as much. But I think subsequent listens, like over and over with this album, by my third time through it, that's where it really started to hit me. Because your first time is like the novelty of, I hadn't listened to a whole Noah Khan album before, and this guy's a Vermonter, and I really want to go into this thing and like it. So there's that novelty of the first time you listen to it, and that kind of cool thing where it's like, this guy like grew up in the same kind of place I did. Like, it's just a cool thing to think about. And then when I put on my actual like podcaster hat, my album review hat, and really have to like dig into these things, that's where you start to notice that repetition. And I think that's where you notice that he does, he repeats the choruses. It goes like, okay, we're going to drop the instrumentation and do this kind of thing, this almost a cappella, and then we're going to bring everything right back in to end the song on a high note. And there's those kind of things that happen kind of constantly throughout the album. And that's, tons of artists do that. It's not like this is a new thing and he's just discovered this trick and it's like wearing thin on me. It's like there's tons of artists that do that thing. And it's just something you notice when you're listening to this album in full, and especially after like repeated listens.
Yeah, I did a little exercise with myself just going into it, because I kind of have a weird relationship with Noah Khan and his music, and that this is nothing against the guy, and it's a kind of hipster of me, but like Stick Season took off, and it kind of missed me. And in it missing me, and then having to hear it ad nauseum for years and years, it was tough. I lucked into seeing him in concert, this benefit show that he played in Essex. Friend of the pod, Brandon, he got tickets through like the secondary market lottery, because basically the whole thing was like no scalpers, no nothing. If you aren't going to use your ticket, you have to resell it here. So he got resale tickets, and his wife couldn't go, so I went.
His other wife.
Yes, me, wife too. Wife with beard. I went, and that was kind of the start of me like getting it and kind of forgiving him for Stick Season. It wasn't his fault. Like, why do I have a grudge against this guy? Why do I roll my eyes every time I hear Stick Season? And I really was able to carve out other parts of his catalog that really resonated with me and songs that I liked off of that album. And going into this, I was kind of worried. I was like, this could not hit. So I'm just gonna, as I go on, any song that I like, really like, not like any song that I'd be okay listening to. None of these songs have turned off the radio heat for me or anything like that. But like a song that I really like, I'm gonna just add it to a playlist. And when I'm done the album, I'm gonna see how many songs it is, how many songs I really liked. And it's 13 out of 17.
Pretty good.
Which is still an hour of music, which is still enough to make, an album. So, going into it, I was hoping that I'd maybe come out with like 5 or 6, and then the fact that the majority of the album really resonated with me and I really liked it was a great experience. I'm excited for what he's going to do on this tour. I think that we're like, this is really the takeoff. Like Stick Season, call it what you will, flash in the pan, yada yada yada. He got nominated for Best New Artist. Like, now it's time for him to start getting nominated for Best Album. And like artist of and like this is a major step in that direction. He is no longer a kid that grew up listening to Mumford & Sons. He's now on their level. And firmly has planted his flag there. And again, for to be from Vermont, this small, tough little state, he has the song, All the Horses song, which is about the catastrophic flooding that like affected, like it's just, he has placed Vermont in the center of the greater music pop world, whereas for a long time it was like, oh, this is clearly an LA album, or this is a Malibu album, or this is a New York album, or oh, it's a country artist, this is like a fake Texas album, or the Nashville sound, right? He has kind of now placed Vermont firmly in the pantheon of like a sound of a place. And I do agree with you guys that like the repetition does happen, and I also think that the album is just long. Like, it's just a long album, and the fact that he released the one with the bonus tracks like blew my mind. I was like, wait a minute, there were other ones they cut and they still released those. Like, I want to know the ones that would have been cut from this. Like, if the label was like, no, 15 song album or 14 song album, make the cuts. But again, we live in a world where like now it's not really radio play, it doesn't drive it, it's streams, it's yada yada, it's all different parameters and everything. But no, this was I found myself very, very pleasantly surprised, and I wanted to like it. And I did. So there's that.
Well, I am ready to give my rating.
Let's give ratings.
Unless you guys had even more. So this one for me, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It was docked to the point because there was no song on this where, when I thought about, similar kind of thing with your playlist thing, Tanner, I was like, is there anything on this album that I would cut out? And I think if you're talking about the Last of the Bugs version of it, the deluxe version of it, there's probably more songs I'd cut out, which he obviously did for the regular actual like released album that he did. I really felt like I connected well with the songwriting. I felt like it was very much speaking my language, whether it's the landscapes he's talking about, the people he deals with in Vermont, just the general kind of almost malaise that comes over you. And that's part of that repetition too, is like, that's representative of Vermont as well. There's a lot of days you just do the same thing because there's not a whole lot to do. So for me, it's the 9 out of 10. Just like you, I wanted to like it, and I'm glad I loved it.
Yeah, I am also giving it a 9 out of 10. For me, the docking does come from that little bit of sameness. I would say thematically, lyrically, musically, structurally, there are moments where there are certain things that feel a little redundant to one another. The three songs I referenced before where I was like, these are variations on the same idea and the same lyrics. It's that kind of thing. Like individually, you're like, wow, this is a strong track. Seeing it strung together with two other things that resemble it so close, you kind of key in on that a little bit and not necessarily always a positive way, but it's a very, 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 very small thing in the grand scheme of things,
Mhm.
which is like literally the only thing for me that takes it down to a 9. I too wanted to like this, wanted to be a part of this like uniquely Vermont special relevant thing, but was like, not liking Stick Season, you have to make your peace with the fact that you might hate this and this might stink. And you never know. But you go into it with an open mind and an open heart. And it really did, I think, cement Noah Kahan for me as like an act to keep tabs on, an artist to put the work in to follow. Like
Mhm.
asking someone to listen to a 17 track over an hour album for, some guy, for like the average person, it's a big ask, but it's well worth the investment, and it's one that I intend to continue to make.
I would love for us to do an exercise, and I don't know if it involves Stick Season itself, or maybe we could do like the Live from Fenway Park live album that he came out with, where he plays a lot of the Stick Season stuff. He also dabbles into his older stuff. I'd love to retroactively go back and look at some of his other stuff with you guys, because there are things off of Stick Season that I really, really like, and
Mhm.
that kind of are like under the radar stuff. He still plays them live and everything, but they're not like the showstopper. Everyone's cell phones aren't out, when he's playing She Calls Me Back. But in terms of a rating for this, I'm actually I'm going to give it an 8.5. And I had that number originally. I was going to give it an 8, but I went back and listened to some of the other stuff, and I was like, I think 8's too low. I think 8.5. I think for me, the length is the big detractor.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you do have to make some hard decisions in the studio sometimes as an artist, I think. And he, the major gripe that I had going into this was that he re-released Stick Season like 2 different times after Stick Season came out with like all these other songs and blah blah blah. And you know what? I would much rather he did that with this. Like, hey, here is a 1 hour tight album. Boom. It's a little long, it's an hour, but
Yeah.
it's tight. And then 6 months, oh, hey, by the way, here are the 6 songs we really wanted to put on it, but we didn't. And then here's me doing some of the big songs off it with Casey Musgraves and Marcus Mumford and Hosier. Like, I would almost rather that. So it's I'm kind of being a little persnickety about this, but A5 is my number. Again, it's more to do with my disdain for the death of the album. Like Zach Bryan releases like 35 song albums all the time now. Like I just, these are anthologies. This is more of an anthology, I would say, than an album, than a record. This is way closer to Neil Young's Decade than it is to even the original Stick Season. But yeah, A5, loved it, absolutely loved it. Saw it in Burlington Records couple days before I listened to it, and it's pretty expensive because it's a lot of vinyl in there. And I didn't buy it because I was like, what if I buy it and I don't like it that much?
Yeah.
But
Is it a
listen
triple?
to it. I'm not even sure. I didn't even pick it up. I just like saw it on the wall, $55. I was like,
yeah, probably a triple.
Look pricey.
Yeah.
It's pricey to buy blind.
Yeah.
Pricey to go in blind, right? And just be like, if this was, a Coheed album or something like that, we'd be singing a different tune. Oh, a new Springsteen album that you just dropped? Yeah, I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah.
But no, I'll definitely be picking it up. Yeah, tip of the cap. He's really done it here. And he's presented this mature sound, and I really hope that you listen to some of these and you're like, man, I hope this isn't like the real view you have of yourself, because a lot of people really, really love you, and It sucks that there are people that are like close to you that are kind of being shitty to you and
Mhm.
everything. Like, come hang out with us. We'd love to just hang out with you. Rip some fucking cigs. Let's play some golf, dude. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, 8.5, and it's a strong 8.5.
Okay, well, I'd say that's pretty solid for Mr. Khan for his first appearance on the podcast. I'd say that's a pretty solid solid debut. And Alex, if he had previously been on the podcast, could you tell Tanner where people might be able to find that sort of stuff?
Well, if, and that's a pretty big if, he had been on the pod, there would be one way to figure it out. And folks, I'm going to keep it simple, okay? We've been jamming on this album. I'm going to make this concise. It's the last thing you're going to fit into your brain tonight. YouTube.com/C/out on that line. That is where your investigative journey begins. Where's the con? Did we bury some con? Did we hide some con? Or is it going to be like my first Easter where there was dog shit inside of a plastic egg? I don't know. You tell me. It's your experience. I'm not having it. I already had it. I look at this like Jerry Garcia. I've already played my music. It doesn't matter to me if I profit off it or not. If it means that much to you, tape it and take it home with you. It's fine. That's how I feel about the pod. You go do the hard work. You make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. You click the bell so you get notifications when we make new content. You hit the thumbs up to like the video and you leave a comment. Dear God, that is potentially the most important thing you can do is mix it up in the comments. Let us know what you thought about this album. Let us know what you want to see next. It's all perfectly legal at youtube.com/C/out on that line. And also, we're on Spotify now.
Hell yeah, we are. Tanner, once again, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on this one with us, buddy. And folks, till next time.